Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Lorraine Garcia, Communication Specialist here at Coachella Valley Water District. Welcome to our Proper Tree Care webinar. This webinar is being recorded, as you must have seen the little notice pop up, and everyone is in listening mode. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, or if you're on a tablet, it may be on the top right-hand side of your screen. We will get to questions after the presentation, and Stephanie, CVWD Water Management Specialist, Stephanie will be helping us moderate those questions. Let's learn a little bit about our speaker. Robert Avina is a water management specialist here at Coachella Valley Water District. He has worked for CVWD for 17 years in the water management department. He is a certified arborist, landscape irrigation auditor, qualified water efficient landscaper, and an American Water Works Association water use efficiency practitioner with a grade 1. Please welcome Mr. Robert Avina.
Thank you, Lorraine. I appreciate everybody that's here this morning, lunchtime. It's been a while since we've been in person, so I'll just go right in on what we're going to be covering. So today we'll be covering selecting trees, planting trees, irrigation, pruning trees, and a selection of trees that do well here in the desert. So selecting trees, you see on the left-hand side of our slide, we have a lush and efficient book from the CVWD that we put together on a plant palette that does well here in the Coachella Valley. We also refer to the Sunset Western Garden book also. And the most important part of planting trees are to make sure you pick the right tree for the right spot. So up in the right-hand side, you see they picked a location too close to the home, and that's what happens over here in the foundation. And you don't want to plant, obviously, too close to the utility lines because this is what you get. So probably not good planting. So selecting trees. Like I said again, the location, which is a eucalyptus tree, overhang. May not have been a problem in the beginning. It's probably smaller like everything else, and like it just starts outgrowing, and I see problems here. Maybe a limb may fall down. So it's very important to pick the correct location for the trees, and be in mind and think about like the maturity of the tree, how high it's going to get, how wide is it going to get. You know, a lot of these developments, like I said, start off small and they don't think about for long term. So it's really bad. No lollipop trees. These are all rounded. This is obviously in a nursery. So these aren't very well to kind of structural prune. And you want a tree with a central leader, which I'll be describing later on a few slides. And you want low branches to promote tree health, to make the tree taper thicker on the trunk. So up at the top, you got the poor quality on this image. See here, there's no low. These branches are almost included, which they don't attach separate from the trunk. They're almost on the same point of connection. Got this one here. Once the leaves start growing on the branches, start getting top heavy, you fall down. This one's going in a different direction. It's not a central leader. So all these up at the top are not good quality trees. The best quality ones are down on the bottom, where they have the little branch scaffolds on the sides, feeding this tree's trunk so it gets thicker within time, and then you're able to trim these down to promote growth. And this right-hand side is also a good quality tree. You don't see a lot of those around because they've been pruned, but I'll show more images later. Here's another image. That's perfect right here. You got the central leader. No codominant stems here. There are no competing leaders. So usually you'll see two of these competing for it. You need to get the central one because eventually later on the limb will get heavy on one side and it just causes gluted barking and more damage later on. Another picture of the nursery out there where the trees are good quality trees. There's just no low branches on here. That's the only thing I see wrong with this image. But these are just examples of what you need to look for. This is a good one also. There's low branches feeding the trunk taper. eventually you can select to prune these out, open it up a little bit. And these are just temporary branches just to feed the tree to get its growth going. This is an example of girdling roots that you find in nursery containers. I'll be talking about this in a few more other slides. I just put this in here. And you see this isn't good. This is going to be detrimental later on once the tree matures. And here's another image where all these are girdling around the root bone. Probably was growing in the container too long, and nurseries do not relocate, make them bigger containers. They're just there to sell them. So if you ever go out and pick in the nursery, you want to make sure you look at the container. You can see, I mean, not obviously everything in the bottom, but if you see the little openings in the bottom, there's roots out there. That's an indicator that the root bound. Another image. No lollipop trees, I was saying earlier. This is rounded. You know, some of the trees are grown like that, and that's great, but there's no central leader. They're all just, there's no space between these branches. So just go out, central leader, going up to the top, lower branches to feed the tree, and then eventually remove these. And here's another image with the limbs in the bottom. We're going to discuss why does tree structure matter. I'll show some images on what is good and what's bad. Good branch structure, bad branch structure. This is good branch structure. You got the central leader going to the top of the canopy. There's nothing crisscross, so this is a good branch structure. Another one was a little bit older tree. Separation between the branches, so there's no included bark in there. And this is a cross section of a tree. So if you see what I'm talking about, and there's no included bark, the trunk is actually attached to the branch is actually attached to the trunk. There's no other included bark. So this is good structure. This is a cross section of one that they produced out here. Here's the bad branch structure. They're all at the same point of connection here. There's no individual point like this one over here. It may look okay now, but eventually that's just going to be disastrous. You got somebody walking underneath here, so it's a high traffic area. Windy day, may knock one of those limbs out. Hopefully nobody's there, and a lot of liability on the property owner for that. Here's another one. Looks like they have two trunks right here. This should have been, one of these should have been pruned when we first planted these trees, or this tree. And that's, again, cause issues. It looks like it's too close to this tree. And that's a cross section of the tree with a bad structure. There's no, they're attached at the same point. So it's going to cause later the limb to break. And as to this one, it has its own attachment. Here, his probably got toppled over with high winds. Everything was top heavy. All these branches are probably just way too heavy. It's never been pruned, and you can see how it just split just the middle. And there it goes again, liability of this property. Probably the homeowner was being liable for that. So that's something to think about. Another one, that's another branch that just took off and hit this gentleman's van. And it's just basically poor planning when you started planting the tree. Here's another image. This limb fell off. And again, you can see same attachment, one point of connection. Here's an in close look at this where they're all attached to the same area. And again, like I said, it's lucky it didn't break sooner, but it eventually will cause issues like this. And the most important part is planting. That's a key point of planting a healthy tree. So I said correct location. This was obviously not a correct location on the left and also on the right. Some underneath some utility lines. And a lot of, like I said, when you plant these, think about maturity, not just instant gratification. Here's a little diagram on what we look for. You know, you got the staking, which I'll be discussing later. to dig the hole 2 to 3 times the root ball. That's what is a key factor, making sure that the roots aren't below the grade, they're above. Because eventually, once you backfill this and you irrigate, it's just going to go, it'll drop down lower, and it will cause the roots up at the top root flare to suffocate and basically lack oxygen into the tree and probably die. Like I said, the tree should be slightly above grade, which this one is. Should be able to see the root flare, which I'll be showing you in some other images. This one, you can just see right here. That's the top of it. And that's really important to locate when you plant a tree. And coming from a nursery, you look in the container, you make sure that you can identify the root flare. If you don't see it and there's like 4 inches of soil above that, I would just look for another tree, because you're just going to have problems and waste money and time. You can prune the roots if needed. You really don't want to do that as much. The only ones that you would want to do is if they're girdling, but you don't want to take too much off of that, because the roots are pretty much everything for the tree to be able to establish it properly. And like I said, if there's too many girdling roots, look for another tree. And you want to make sure we prune for structure only. Here's the branches, crisscross. This is going to go into the central leader, so this is good to cut off when they're young. It's easier to repair the trees when they're younger than when they're older. And recommending stake only for 1 year and remove approximately. Really shouldn't have to stake the tree. You do to stabilize the root around here, but you want to make sure when you do stake it, it's not hitting the root bone area. It's out here. And you want to make sure these stake ties are loose, because you want to be able to get this tree trunk strong so it's able to withstand its hold strength when it gets older. So importantly, dig in the hole. As here, the gentleman's 2 to 3 times bigger than the root ball in the container. So you want to make sure it's wide enough. Then you'll fill it with water. And you want to fill this so it gets the soil moist. So once you insert the tree, the roots in the container from the tree will be able to attach itself eventually, than just having dry soil. So they're here, they're planting. They insert the plant in the hole, elevate it 2 to 3 inches above grade. So he's measuring with this rake. You want to backfill with native soil. For the desert trees, we don't need fertilizer, and we just backfill with the native soil that we have. If you put compost in trees, it's like backfilling a tree or pots in a pot that doesn't have holes in the bottom. So it just basically will make the roots just rotten. It won't attach to the soil around it. So it's very important. So like the gentlemen's backfilling, and you put water again. Make sure all the roots get moist, and a lot of the soils are going to make a difference in how fast the water percolates through the soil. So if you're in sandy, you're going to want to irrigate more often, less time. Clay, not as much runtime. So the soil is the main thing to determine irrigating the tree. The roots, very important. This image, these are normal roots on the left-hand side. They extend 18 to 36 inches underground, and they go out 4 times the canopy of a tree. Here's the girdle roots, like I was describing in those first slides. Continue growing around the tree. It can easily blow over in wind. So if you see this in a container, like I said, just don't even purchase the tree and look for another one, because this is what eventually is going to happen. And the trees roots do go beyond the canopy area. And this is an example, the tree topping over because of the girdling roots. It restricts the water and nutrients that going up on top of the tree to the trunk and to the leaves. So it basically chokes it out. Here's another one. All these roots are girdled. And then the root flare is very important. You want to identify this portion of the tree. When you plant it, you want to see all this root flare, because That's the attaching roots to go to the outer portions of the soil. And it encourages proper growth and helps resistant disease. So this is very important when you get a tree in the nursery, in the container, you want to see this. Like I said, if there's 4 inches of soil on top, you can take it off, that's fine, but usually that's an indicator that's going to be a bad tree to begin with. No root flare on the right-hand side here, it's suffocating. This encourages diseases and it doesn't grow properly. The staking. We see this a lot. I see it a lot in the desert. Nobody removes the nursery stakes. They just assume that they need to be there or in the nursery. It's really tight here, so the tree is not getting stronger. It's actually hurting the tree. These needs should be removed as soon as you purchase a tree. Like I said, I see a lot of them out there, bad practice. So definitely want to take these off. Here's the nursery stake right here. This is it's supposed to be part of the bark, but it looks like it's taken off there. It's able to get sun scaled. And here's another image with the nursery stake going through the canopy, which is causing it, to grow not as healthy as it's supposed to be, but these need to be removed. When you stake a tree, you want to determine the normal direction of the wind. Prevailing wind is here. Stakes go outside the root ball. Do not want to go into the canopy right below the lower limb. And you want to be able to, like I said, keep it at least approximately a year to be able to get this tree stronger. And you're just protecting the root ball. It's not the actual tree itself. It's a root ball to get it stable. And you want it to have enough flex, like this image here. The one earlier in the nursery stakes, there was no movement there. So these need to have able for the tree to move back and forth and get stronger on its own. This is some of the stretch tie you can use for staking a tree. It's flexible, it's able to move a little bit, give the trunk some room to move back and forth, and eventually get that tree stronger. And like I said, remove stake after approximately 1 year. And the prevailing winds, you want to make sure the wind's going this way. You want the stakes on this side. You don't want them going the same direction because it defeats the purpose. And here's another image of a wild tree. The support around the trunk must allow the room for trunk expansion. So you want to make sure this hole is a lot bigger than the root ball. And this is why we remove ties and stakes. Here, it's been there for a long, long, long time. And it's basically, like I said, it's choking out the nutrients and the water that's supposed to go through the bark, through the trunk, to the leaves. And there's another image. And this is obviously really tight. Use some wire here. It took like a hose to a water hose and then part of the wire inside. And this is the other image I showed you earlier, they left the stake in there and it's causing where it gets sunburned once they probably removed it. Irrigation is very important. And I'll be discussing saving trees during drought. So emitter placement on trees. You got the soil, which is clay, and that water moves outward. Loamy soil, which is ideal, 50% loam, 50% oxygen. They got the emitter here, got the sand. This is the way it just goes in, infiltrates it to the soil. So these are just images on how the water spreads in the soil. That's very important because you want to make sure you're giving the water or the tree the water at the right time and not overwatering it. Here at this one, here's a tree canopy. Here's a drip line that extends off the canopy of the tree on both sides. 12 to 36 inch root depth from these roots, the root zone, irrigation zone. And like I said, it goes 1.5 to 4 times the width of tree canopy. Here's a top view of what the emitter should be placed at the canopy and the base. The trees provide an immense range of health, energy, environmental and economic benefits. Trees improve air quality and water quality. Trees provide shade to the landscape and reduce water needs. And trees help keep your home cooler. Trees slow stormwater runoff and help recharge groundwater. And trees reduce soil erosion. Trees add value, sometimes thousands of dollars worth to your home and neighborhood. And trees take a long time to grow. Without helping our trees through the drought, we risk of losing these benefits. While the tree drought may not last long, it can harm or kill trees up to 10, 20, or even 50 years. And it's hard to grow back and get the benefits. This is recognizing early signs of drought on the leaves. So irreversible damage can occur that no amount of water will correct. Mature fruit trees and landscape trees are worth saving. So you can see at the edge of these leaves, they're burnt, indicating there's not as much water that it should be getting. Common symptoms of the drought include wilting or drooping leaves that do not return to normal by evening, curled or chlorotic yellow leaves that may fold or drop, foliage that becomes grayish and loses its green luster, and new leaves that are smaller than normal. And here's an image of what they were describing. You can see on the right hand side, this is just, there's no green in there, so it's dead. Here's another image on the right hand side. And another one from a farther view on a tree. And the tips over here on the left hand side also. So you got a little green, but outside didn't get enough water, so those are just pretty much dead. And here's some ideas on how to save your trees. Lawn trees can and must be saved during the drought. And these are things you can do. You can deeply and slowly water mature trees 1 to 2 times per month with a simple soaker hose or drip system towards the edge of the canopy, not at the base of the tree. Use a hose faucet timer found at a hardware store to prevent overwatering. Young trees need 5 gallons of water, maybe 2 to 4 times per week. Create a small watering basin with a berm of dirt. Do not over prune during drought, because that's pretty much their food. The leaves are providing the tree with the food. So if you take that all off, it's just going to make it stress more during the drought season. The mulch is important. So if you can do 4 to 6 inches of mulch, it retains moisture, reducing water needs and protecting your tree. Water deeply less often. Be sure to water your tree's needs. So here's a canopy, drip line. The roots go beyond that. This is where they're all going to be absorbed the water from these roots and going onward. Here's a top view. Got the roots, irrigation on here. Is being irrigated all around here. The tree canopy is here. So you can see how far these roots go and need water to be irrigated in the right parts of the tree trunk. If you're irrigating with the drip, be sure you have enough emitters. This is above ground tubing that you can use around the trees to get the root zone. That's something you find at the irrigation store. And soaker hoses are wonderful as well. Here's another example. Here's another tree that's in the lawn, which is very hard to irrigate because if there's drought restrictions and you turn off the water on the lawn and the tree's getting its water from the lawn, it takes a big hit on the trees. So that's why irrigating around here. And they have a good idea to save these trees, and it looks like it's doing well now with all the green leaves. Want to make sure you irrigate properly here. This looks fine. Got the berm to retain the water. And pruning is one of the most important tasks you can do for your trees. So topping is probably seen all through the desert. It's not the right way to prune. So you see the top tree. This is what happens after it's been topped. It just starts growing sprouts out of the limbs that were cut. Right here in the bottom, this is pretty much all the food's been taken off. And a lot of it, it's kind of the landscapers are just being told from the homeowners that they want everything trimmed off of there. And if they don't do it, they're not going to get paid. So basically, the more they take off, it looks like they're doing something, but they're really not. And that's where education comes in to help these homeowners understand the proper pruning techniques. So we do not want to top trees. We said top trees grow weakly attached limbs eventually when it grows back. And it's easier for disease to enter with these limbs being cut so short. And it causes weak attachments, and high winds will knock these limbs down in the branches. And here's some top trees all over. Like I said, they took all this more than they should have off the tree. Here's the right image also. And here's another one. So you see this all through the desert. It's not a practical way to prune trees, but like I said, some of these landscapers are told by homeowners to do it that way because they want to see, they think it's better. So here's two images of top trees. There's a tree here next to the house. Top tree, year one, everything's removed. Year two, everything's growing back aggressively. It's not attached very well. And here, the third year. If you go to the right side, the prune tree that's pruned properly, you can see it spread the scaffold branches. There's no crisscross branches. So it's going back like it should grow. And then compared to this, it's not as bushy as this. And this is due to over pruning or topping. So the selective pruning method is basically what we should all be doing. What to prune from a tree. So you go here, you got suckers. These can be pruned. Limbs that have sag or go close to the ground, which are over here, you can cut those. Branches that form an acute angle with the trunk, which is here, it's going up into the other branches. So they're going to be competing eventually. So it's best to cut these. D, water sprouts, like here. That's from improper pruning previously. And you can trim dead wood and limbs that are broken anytime, as here. And then branches that grow parallel to and close to another, like right here. Too close, there's no space there. So they're going to be competing for space eventually. And branches that crisscross and rub against each other, that you can always take off. And limbs that compete with the tree's central leader. So up here, this was going to start competing with the central leader. So this was removed. Some more pictures of the broken limbs that you can prune here. Dead limbs you can prune here. And here's the two leaders that are competing. And you want to prune the one that's going to be stronger eventually. He could have been here, but they decided to prune this branch. So this will be the dominant stem eventually. And three cut method. This is a method to be able to cut larger branches off a tree. You see here, there's a collar. It's a swollen area on the tree. Sometimes they're not, you can't see them. So here's a branch bark ridge. You don't want to cut into this area because that's live tissue. You want to cut out here so it doesn't cause any issues with the tree biology. See on the right-hand side saying no. So you don't want to cut in this area. You want to cut outside this root collar if you have one root collar visible. So you prune out crossing branches and make structural cuts. That's what you need to do. You make your cuts with the three cut method. Here's a three cut method on larger limbs, remember. So you're going to come up maybe 12 inches past this root collar, do an undercut, maybe 4 inches in, to a top cut, and you're going to space it maybe 2 or 3 inches out from this cut cut through the branch. That'll take the top heavy area, so it won't split or tear the bark. So once you go here, just should cut, and I'll show you image right now. And then when you're done with this, you can come down here and cut right through it, and it's less, it won't cause as much damage or any ripping, tearing the bark. And you do not want to cut into the collar like I described in here. That's all live tissue. You do that, it's just going to cause more diseases to enter the tree. Selective pruning. You're going to prune out crossing branches and make structural cuts. Here's an image again. You make your 3 cuts method with the larger branches, because like I said, these are smaller, so you're able to cut these and not worry about them tearing the bark. And here's the image again. So undercut, top cut, and then the finish cut. And like I said, do not cut into the collar, which is in here. Another image of all the ways you can cut on different parts of the tree, left side. So you can cut the dead branches anytime. It's the live branches you're concerned about on hardwood trees. And here's another picture of a close-up view of the branch collar. Undercut is here. Second cut's through here. So this is just cut off, a clean cut, and then you can come down here and cut the remaining of the branch off the trunk of the tree. So bad cuts, no 3-part cut. So I will describe these here. So look at this image. This was no 3-part cut. So you can see it's just ripped here because they didn't do that 3-cut method. No branch collar. So this is just injured the tree. And this is another image. I just cut the bark of the tree. Another one. And here's images of good cuts. Got the undercut, the branch collar. And this is what I'm saying, when you cut on the top, the second cut, it will just cut off here and it'll be a clean cut. And the remaining of the branch just go right through it. And that should do it. And this looks like a good cut. It's not into the branch collar or branch ridge. This is a good cut right here because it's clean. And eventually this little area here will form like a donut, and it will protect it from getting any disease in it, like this one right here. So this is a good cut. So if you see on the trees, they know what they're doing out there. Never take more than 25% of the foliage off. I think that's all of the foliage. So again, the leaves are there to feed the tree. Take off the food supply, it's just going to kill the tree eventually. Here's another image. This is all lines tailing. All the tips are full of the branches. Here's some other images with more than 25%. Before picture on the left-hand side with all the branches, leaves, and here's after. But like I said, homeowners want them to cut all the leaves so it looks like they've done something. But structural pruning is the best thing to do. Describing mulching. So don't want to mulch like a volcano here because you're basically going to suffocate the roots. Tree's not going to be able to get its oxygen, and it's going to cause a lot of issues with the roots. Proper mulching here. You want to see the root flare, which I described earlier. And this is a bad method of mulching. Don't want to do that. So you want to keep the mulch away from the trunk, as they did here. Spread the mulch to a diameter of at least 3 feet. You don't want to go any higher than maybe 3 to 4 inches on the depth. And this is an example. Here's some trees that do well in the desert. These are just a few. There's most likely more, but this is what we put on here. So the silk tree, mimosa tree, this does well. It's a deciduous tree, so it loses its leaves. And it goes about 25 to 35 feet high and wide. It's best to stake these when they're young. Occasional deep watering, and it's native to Asia. So there's a flower up close in the leaves. The purple orchid tree, it's a dense medium crown. It goes up 25 feet high, equal spread. Flowers in late February. Large butterfly shaped leaves. White flower forms also available. And reflected sun, moderate water user. And it's moderate to rapid growth. Magenta purple flowers, native to India and China. Here's a flower up close. The leaves. And here's a white flower form. Weeping bottlebrush. This gets up to 20 to 30 feet high, 15 wide. It flowers in mid-spring to summer, and do not want to plant this in lawn. Roots do not like much moisture, so that's why you won't want to plant it in the lawn, because the lawn's going to be getting a lot of water. It's reflected sun, so it does well there. And moderate water user, moderate rate of growth. It's an evergreen, and it's native to Australia, cold tolerant to 20 degrees. Here it is again. We just put the image here. This should have been pruned a long time ago, so we just put the image of the canopy area to see how you could get a visual. And there's the bottlebrush flower. And the blue Paula Verde, this is a multi-trunk. This gets 30 feet high, 30 feet wide. This blooms spring in March and April. And with age, many trunks darken. So the older it gets a little darker. This also likes reflected sun, low water use, rapid growth. Has the golden yellow flowers and the bluish green bark. And it's native to Sonora Desert. Indian rosewood. This gets 40 feet high, 30 feet wide. It's cold deciduous. Bright, glossy, lush green leaves. Wide spreading roots help stabilize on banks and slopes. And this is loves full sun. It's a moderate water user. And it grows moderately fast. And it's native to India as a timber tree. Here it is in a container. The desert willow. This is light airy tree. This grows from 25 to 30 feet high. It's winter deciduous, and the flowers are pink and purple. You want to prune in winter to control growth and produce new flowering wood. And this is also enjoys full sun. Growth is moderate water user, deciduous, so it does lose its leaves. And the orchid-like flowers, and it's native to Sonora and Chihuahua Desert. The desert smoke tree, often overlooked as a native to Coachella Valley. This needs a little care, and other than shaping, it grows better with irrigation, best in sandy soils, native to the washes out here. Silver gray smoking looking branches. And it has fragrant purple flowers, and it's a cold tolerant 22 degrees. And this is a low water user. And it does well with reflected sun. There's a picture of the flowers up close, the branches. And the tipu tree, we've had a lot of these planted at the water district. They're good street trees. Full sun, moderate fast grower, evergreen to cold deciduous, and it's native to South America. The cold tolerance 25 degrees. Evergreen pear. This is light airy tree, 15 to 30 feet high. It's winter deciduous. And it produces white flowers late in winter and early spring. And it's native to Taiwan. And there's flowers once they flower out. Purple leaf plum, full sun, moderate water user, fast growth, smooth purple black foliage. It's native to China and cold tolerance 10 degrees. That's the flowers. Royal Poinciana, full sun, fast growth, low to moderate water, winter deciduous, so it loses its flowers in the wintertime. Orchid-like flowers, native to Madagascar and cold tolerant 30 degrees. There's the leaves up close. And there's the flower. I'm going to go over what we covered. Selecting trees, planting trees, irrigation, pruning trees, some desert trees. And these are some of the resources you can go out and look up. And if you're interested in learning more about the trees, these are all good websites to refer to. This is my information. If you have any questions that you want me to answer that maybe I didn't touch on the PowerPoint, feel free to call me or email me, and I'll respond to you as soon as possible. Questions?
Thanks, Robert. That was great. So if anybody has any questions, you can type them in the chat, the Q&A, or you can also raise your hand and I can try and see if I can unmute you so you can ask your question.
Hi, Lorraine and Robert, it's Stephanie. I had one question come in the chat. I think that you've already went over it though, Robert, but just to make sure and get your arborist opinion. If a potted tree's roots are severely intertwined, will they end up straightening out once the tree is planted?
You can cut some of those roots out of the container and you can cut them outward because you want them to attach outward like a spider, right? So if they're a bunch of roots girdling, you may be able to save it. It just depends how big the tree is in the container, how much roots are at the bottom. That's a good question.
Okay, and someone just asked if the presentation will be available online after. Yes, it will. We are recording it, so it'll be on YouTube, but we're also going to add it to our conservation and workshops page. So we will have that available online. And I see that someone has their hand raised, so I am going to see if I can unmute, and that's Charles Hansberger.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Hi, great presentation, appreciated. What about palms?
What about palms, sir? I didn't cover those, sorry.
Well, is that, help me understand, you've obviously, you're the specialist. I'm just a board member and homeowner here in the Cathedral City. So is that a whole different subject?
No, not, well, yeah, it's, the palms are different, you know, they're monocots, they're up in one seed, but if you have any questions, I can try to answer. If not, I can find out for you if you like. I'm not sure what the question, what is the question?
Oh, for example, we have discussion each year, depending on who's been affected as to when the palms should be, one, should they be trimmed? Two, if they should be trimmed, cleaned up. If so, when? Sometimes the ones close to the pool, they say, oh, you got to get those because they make a mess. No, if you do it now, we'll have to do it a second time. And so that's where, that's probably the most common thing that we have. The rest of it, they're pretty much maintenance free and they pretty much withstand whatever's going on. But the biggest issue is trimming them.
To answer your question, yeah, a few questions within the question. I believe the palms can be pruned or trimmed when the dead fronds are coming off to remove those, and you are going to get some seeds on the different variants of palms you have. You don't want to have them cut too high into the apical stem. I mean, it's getting scientific now, but it's in the middle part of the tree. You don't want to get to that high. It should look like a 45-degree angle, basically, as high as it can get. Now, if you have palms around a tree, it's going to get messy regardless of when you trim it or cut it. So you basically want to plant something around a tree, maybe a low Mediterranean fan palm. But good question. I mean, I know they trim during June for the summer for the fruit. But like I said, you can probably trim. Well, you can trim all the dead fronds. It's not going to hurt it. You just don't want to go way up into the top of the applicable stem. It's like the main meat of the tree, of the palm. Sorry. And like I said, if you have more questions, feel free to email me. I can get to more detail with you. But that was a good question. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Thanks, Robert. We have a few more questions. There is a lot of questions on palms. I think we could do a whole presentation on palms alone, but what type of palms do well in the desert? They're asking maybe queen palms, pygmy palms. Some people say they hear they're not even good for the desert. What's your opinion on those?
Well,
best choices?
I'm sorry, date palms, California, the Mexican fan palms, Mediterranean fan palms. Pygmy palms are okay, but the queen palms are the ones that don't do well. I mean, they may do good maybe the first 2 or 3 years, and then they get that frizzle on top where you basically cut it off of it, and it just they don't do well, or they're for more tropical area. But some people put manganese spikes on the bottom of that to help it. But like I said, maybe first 2 or 3 years are well, and they put them around pools because they look tropical, right? So yeah, those are a list that we have, and they can go to our Lush and Efficient book, and that'll have a majority of the palms that do well here.
Okay, then I have a couple people asking, when is the best time to trim the trees, and are there special instructions for handling the fruit trees?
Fruit trees. Okay, so basically the first part was how to trim any tree, or is that what we're talking about, trees, right?
Pretty much, what is the best time to be pruning your tree?
Best time, it all depends. There's, like I said, there's the dead branches you can trim anytime. When the trees are dormant, it depends on the species. Crepe myrtles, basically they look like they're dead during the wintertime, but they're summer trees, so they do better flowering in the summer, in the spring, in the summertime, wintertime, they go dormant. Suggestion, fall would be better because they're dormant. You can cut, but you don't want to cut too deep, but it's less chance of getting disease on the trees.
Okay, cool, thanks. Another one is, what is the lowest water need native tree to the desert that can tolerate full sun?
Oh man, all of them, like Palo Verdes. Most of them will do well here in the desert. Like I said, the Lush and Efficient. I mean, I can name them off, but I'll be doing the whole book right now. So yeah, Palo Verdes, desert willows. What was the other one? The Indian. All those ones I posted. I mean, I put at the end of the presentation would do well.
Okay.
And you want to make sure before you. I mean, if you're going to do the work yourself, that's great. Hopefully the presentation help you. But like I said, you want to make sure who you hire is specialists or arborists, because like I said, they're just going to cut wherever the homeowner wants them to do, and it's going to be detrimental later. But yeah.
Okay, we just have a few more. We'll wrap up real quickly. There's quite a few questions coming in about citrus, but we have our citrus presentations already on our website, so I think they can pretty much refer to those at this point, and pruning citrus. But here's another question. What grass should we plant that does well under Colorado mesquite? We have several of them.
Colorado mesquite.
Well, it's pretty much they're asking what the grass, so we only really do 2 types of grass here anyway.
Yeah, well, any type of tree that's covering the turf areas are going to prevent the grass from growing. So I'm not sure on that one. Yeah, we just have Bermuda and ryegrass. So those are 2 varieties we use out here, but maybe a ground cover. I'm not sure as far as lantana may be able to work. Yeah, that would be it.
That's a good suggestion.
So yeah,
Ground cover instead of grass.
correct. Yeah, because the grass needs to have sunlight. I mean, it may do well with the winter, right? Because it doesn't need sun, but summertime, the Bermuda's not going to get any sun. And then if you start pruning that mesquite tree just to open space, well, are you over pruning it? It's just a variation. All depends the scenario. Like I said, if he wants, he can email me and I can go into more detail and help him out with that.
Yeah, I was gonna say also if there's a specific like citrus question that we can address right now, we can do that, but
Yeah, you can ask it. Yeah, you can ask.
I don't know if we got to this one. How often do mature trees need to be pruned on average?
No more than 25%. You can do a, like I said, if you have an arborist out there doing it, they'll start cycles on it. And something I forgot to cover, it just, if you get somebody that prunes a tree and you notice that like everything's taken off, then they didn't do a good enough job because the good pruners and are doing selective pruning. So you won't even notice that anything's taken off, and that's good in the long haul. You know, they may leave some branches on there temporarily, but overall it's going to be better for the tree. But yeah, it just all depends on the cycles of the tree species. But like I said, dormant time out here in the desert is probably the best. You don't want to cut too much off during the summer because that's when the tree's growing the most, and it'll speed up the process of actually, how can I say, whatever we take off in the summer, it's going to try to go as fast as to make up what was taken off. So basically compensating for it, so it's not good all the time. But dead parts of the branches can always be cut, broken limbs, but you don't want to cut no more than 25%.
And is that like how often? Like, is it usually like on an annual basis or?
Yeah, it's about annual. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, annual's fine.
And then best time to trim the trees?
This time, it's the same. You know, it all depends. I mean, how big is the tree? Like I said, just as long as you're not 25. And what's the purpose? That's what you're wondering. Like, what do they want? It's like if they continue cutting the top of it and it's going too high, then like I said, the right place, the right location, maybe they need a smaller tree. It's hard to give them a pinpoint answer, but yeah, they can. It depends what type of tree it is. They don't really need to be trimmed very often. I mean, once you do the right pruning, like just deadwood and crisscross branches would be fine. Hope I answered that.
Sounds good to me. Let's see. For YouTube, what will be the title lookup? It'll be under proper tree care. And then I'm going to try to pop in a link here so you know where to go for the actual presentation, the slides. I'll pop that in the chat. And it should be there today, after this webinar. And Stephanie, I don't know if you've seen any others that I've missed.
No, just pretty much tree selection, which I think the best resource is going to be to look at the less efficient. But Robert, what is your opinion on what is the best tree for shade and low water needs? There's so many to choose from.
Well, yeah, Tipu tree is good. It does very well here. You know, the mesquite trees, mesquite trees get a bad rap just because they're not pruned right when they begin with. You know, you see them in the parking lots where they're over pruned. So what happens? They get the sap falling down and they get top heavy because they weren't pruned properly. But that's shade and low water user. Filtered shade. I like the Palo, what is it? Palo Blanco. That's filtered shade. It doesn't get that much shade out there, but that's a low water user. But there's a lot. The Lush and Efficient would be the best one to go to.
Okay, thanks. And pretty much the last one is just please discuss citrus a little bit, but especially pruning. So I don't know if citrus take special pruning or if we can also refer them to the citrus workshop online as well.
Citrus workshop, but just kind of an input on citrus. Basically, they're pruning. You don't want to prune when the fruit's going to come out. You know, do limited pruning. You've got to do like the crisscross. It's not the same as pruning trees, but fruits basically you want you're growing it to get the fruit of the tree. So you want to make sure when you do the pruning that you do at the time after the fruits are grown out, not before, because then you're not going to get any fruit. And you want to fertilize properly. I think it's 3 times a year, February, June, and October. So, but yeah, I would refer to the citrus. Don Ackley would be the good guy to talk to.
Okay, we do have still a few minutes, and I see, well, I don't know if we answered your questions, but I will, I see some people with hands raised. Let's see. We've got Rebecca.
Hi, yes. I have a question about education of the workforce. We all have seen a lot of tortured trees and dying trees, especially in drought times. I'm wondering if DWA or CVWD has any outreach towards, like we had for scalping, smart seeding, where you have to take a test online so that you know how to do that kind of correct seeding to reduce pollution and water waste. Do we have a similar movement in a beginning stages to reach out to the trade, the industry, the gardeners, the landscapers, to educate them on the ways to prune trees that will ensure their survival rather than their demise?
Unfortunately, we won't have anything and going with that, but that comes back to my instructor is an arborist, and he retired, came back because of the fact that people weren't pruning properly. But yeah, we should have people out there that are like us, certified arborists that go and take tests and be update on the new methods and stuff. But it comes back to the homeowner. I mean, I'm not trying to pin it on them, but it comes back to the person that's the client. Like, are they willing to pay a little higher for long-term longevity and better a structure for the tree, or are they just going to pay somebody to move and get their foliage? That's really hard. That's basically on them. I mean, we're hiring them. It's like if you get a contractor, he's bonded, he's going to guarantee his work. You get somebody that's not contracted, it's basically who they want. But yeah, you're right. They should be out there, because you come out there and you see all these trees, like those images I had, they're all top. And like I said, my instructor stopped doing work for a while because he was passionate about the trees and he couldn't stay away. He thought he could make a change, so he went back into it. But yeah, you see that everywhere. But it would be a good idea to have somebody like that. I mean, that's why we have these colleges classes and these classes here to teach the landscapers. That's a good question.
I'm just thinking about the folks who can't afford the time to go to college and they have to be out there in the field. Maybe a homeowner's education campaign would be, I know I've talked to some gardeners who say, yeah, they don't want to pay. So they don't want to pay. I can't do it correctly because it takes a lot of time to do it correctly.
Yeah. I understand. Like I said, I'm pretty sure some of these gardeners with the experience can do that, but like you're saying, they're going back and forth to the homeowner.
Yeah,
But,
and
I
there
mean,
are, so you're also saying, Robert, that there are certified arborists out there that you can hire.
yeah, you can. And like I said, it's like, we have these workshops to help educate the homeowners and the landscapers. And I mean, the code of ethics for arborists is not to go causing damage on property. So some people won't pay. Like I said, they're not going to lose their license or certifications as doing proper pruning. So you get the other people that aren't licensed and aren't liable or responsible, basically. So yeah, that's good question. Thanks for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. I think we are running out of time, and I just want to also let you know that we have some other workshops coming up. We have one on April 6th on houseplants. So if you're interested in that, visit our website, and it should be under conservation, under residential workshops. And I hope everyone has a great day, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.